Do you know who Luffy will end up marrying? Could it be Vivi? Or what about Nami? Will Luffy end up marrying his navigator? Well, that's exactly what we're going to break down in today's video. We'll be giving each character a percentage of their chance to marry our boy Luffy, starting with the ones who have the least chance, and working our way up to the ones who have the most. Alright, let's jump right into it with the first character, Alvida. But yeah, she's got a 0% chance of marrying Luffy. But wait, doesn't Alvida hate Luffy? Well, not exactly. Although at first she did hate him because he straight up called her fat and shattered her ego, as she literally saw herself as the most beautiful woman on the seas. So she of course tried to take him down, but instead she got humiliated as Luffy sent her flying. But then, after eating the Sube Sube no Mi and becoming slim, things got, well, complicated. Now she's obsessed with him, and she's torn between wanting to kill him for humiliating her and making him hers. Yeah, seriously. Even when Buggy tried to kill him in Logtown, she wasn't happy about it. But she ultimately went along with it. But despite her obsession, Luffy doesn't care. He found her annoying from the start, and he didn't even remember her when she told him who she was. So yeah, unfortunately for Alvida, she's stuck at 0%. Moving up to 1% chance of marrying Luffy, we've got Jewelry Bonnie. At first, Bonnie wasn't exactly a fan of Luffy, as she was furious at him for punching a celestial dragon at Sabaody. But after the time skip, she started to respect him, even praising him for taking down Doflamingo. Then, on Egghead Island, Luffy saved her from drowning. But while she thanked him, she quickly reminded him they're still rivals. But despite their rivalry, they have one huge thing in common: food. Yeah, they totally bonded over their shared love of stuffing their faces. Then, Bonnie's respect for Luffy grew even more after learning he was the sun god Nika, and Luffy even helped her copy his Gear 5 with her Devil Fruit, which she used when they fought together against the Five Elders, strengthening their bond even more. So now some people think they'd look cute together, especially when they're both in Nika form. But here's the problem. Bonnie might look 22 because of her Devil Fruit, but she's actually 12 years old. So yeah, Luffy's gotta wait at least 6 years before this even becomes a conversation. But hey, they both love food, so who knows what the future holds. Now let's talk about Carrot, who's got a 5% chance. Carrot adores Luffy, constantly nibbling on his face and giving him garchus. She sees him as a strong leader, cares about him deeply, and she was devastated when he was poisoned. But when he recovered, she couldn't contain herself and nibbled all over him out of pure relief. Now Luffy, he likes Carrot a lot too. As I said, she nibbles on him a lot, but he tolerates it even though it annoys him at times. Then, when Katakuri subdued her, he snapped and attacked him to protect her and let her escape, and he trusts her and treats her like a crewmate. But now that Carrot is the leader of the Minks, there's a very small chance this ship ever sets sail. Next up, we've got Vinsmoke Reiju, coming in with a 7% chance of marrying Luffy. At first, she literally came from the sky like an angel and kissed Luffy, although she was just saving his life by sucking out the deadly poison. But why did she even save him? Well, Reiju genuinely likes Luffy, not just for his personality, but for his determination to help Sanji. Unlike her terrible family, Luffy treated Sanji like a real family, and Reiju admired that. She also smiled when Luffy stubbornly demanded Sanji back right after she saved him, and again when she saw them reunite. So she clearly respects Luffy, and Luffy in turn sees her as a helpful ally and is thankful for both saving his life and helping him retrieve Sanji. But let's be real, Sanji would never let his sister make a move on his captain. So while there's admiration, romance is very unlikely, keeping Reiju at 7%. Moving on, and now we've got Shirahoshi with an 8% chance. She completely adores Luffy and trusts him with her life. And whenever she's in danger, Luffy's the one she cries out for, like when Hody Jones tried to execute her father, or when Caribou tried to kidnap her. To her, Luffy is an incredible person and a true protector, and she feels safe with him. But Luffy? Yeah, well, he finds her annoying. He constantly calls her Crybaby or Weepy Hoshi, and gets frustrated with how timid she is. However, his teasing isn't out of cruelty, he does it because he wants her to be stronger and he genuinely cares about her. Then, by the end of the Fishman Island arc, Luffy gained a lot more respect for her, complimented her strength, and made a promise to return and take her to the surface world to see a real forest. And Shirahoshi held on to that promise so much that she almost refused to attend the reverie, as she wanted her first trip to the surface to be with Luffy. So does she love Luffy? Absolutely. But Luffy, well, he sees her more like a little sister, and that's why Shirahoshi can't be higher than 8%. Now let's talk about Nico Robin, coming in at only 10%. As we all know, Robin literally owes her life to Luffy, as first, he saved her back in Alabasta and gave her a new purpose as she joined the crew. But of course, the real game changer was Enies Lobby, as Luffy literally declared war on the entire world government just to save her, showing her that she had finally found friends who would fight for her. And this moment gave her hope and a reason to live again after years of being alone, and because of that, she is completely devoted to Luffy and would do anything for him as he's the most important person in her life. And as we know, Luffy would do anything for her too, as he sees her like family. But despite their deep bond when it comes to marriage, it's at just 10%. Next up, we've got Yamato, who's also got just a 10% chance of marrying Luffy. Yamato trusts Luffy completely, mostly because he's Ace's brother, but when they first met, Luffy was in a rush to fight Kaido, and Yamato just wanted to talk. And after hearing Yamato's story, Luffy came to trust her, and they teamed up against her father. Throughout the battle, Yamato looked after Luffy, stepping in after he fell off Onigashima, and even catching him from the sky after he beat Kaido. And she was so dedicated to him that she refused to eat or bathe until Luffy woke up. And the moment he did, she hugged him out of sheer relief. Luffy, in turn, also respected and cared for her, like when he removed her explosive handcuffs, freeing her from Kaido's control. But while Yamato was eager to join the crew at first, she ultimately chose to stay behind to protect Wano, with Luffy entrusting her with Wano's future. And before leaving, Luffy told Yamato that she'd always be welcome to join the crew later, promising to pick her up whenever she was ready. But yeah, this ship is most likely not setting sail anytime soon. Next up, we've got Marguerite, who's got a 15% chance.
Marguerite and Luffy first met on Amazon Lily, and although she initially saw him as a threat, they quickly became friends. And since Luffy was literally the first man she had ever seen, she found him fascinating and quickly warmed up to him. She even eventually risked her life to defend him against Boa Hancock, which, well, got her turned to stone. But let's be real, Luffy owes her his life. She saved him twice. First, after his body was covered in mushrooms, and then when the Kuja tribe attacked him. But more than that, he cares deeply for her. Like when she was turned to stone, he literally snapped and unleashed Conqueror's Haki for the first time ever in his desperation to keep her safe. He even chose to save her over reuniting with his crew, showing how much she meant to him. So, while Luffy clearly cares for Marguerite and trusts her deeply, their bond does lean more toward friendship. Now, let's talk about Rebecca, who's got a 30% chance of marrying Luffy. From the start, she found Luffy very interesting. But yeah, she also saw him as an obstacle and even tried to kill him. But after seeing his kindness and strength, she quickly came to admire him and trust him completely. As for Luffy, he likes her a lot, and he respects Rebecca for her determination to fight for Dressrosa's freedom. He cheered her on at the Colosseum, and he got furious when the crowd booed her. Then, when it came time to take on Doflamingo, Rebecca cried and worried about him when he was injured, and after she watched in awe as Luffy took Doflamingo down, she cradled his head in her lap when he passed out, showing how much she cared about him. But Luffy didn't just save Dressrosa, he made sure to prioritize Rebecca's happiness, personally reuniting her with her father before leaving. Even now, she follows his adventures closely, gushing about him whenever she gets the chance, like when she met Kobe. So as there's clear admiration from Rebecca's side, she's at 30%. Moving on, we've got Uta with a solid 60% chance of marrying Luffy. When Uta was 9 years old, she met a 7-year-old Luffy in Fuchsia Village while the Red Hair Pirates were there. As if you didn't know, she's Shanks' adoptive daughter. At first, she didn't think much of him, but after competing, exploring, and clashing over their differences, they formed a strong friendship. Uta was also the one who introduced Luffy to the life of pirates, telling him about Shanks' crew, which fueled his dream of joining them. In return, Luffy showed her the beauty of Fuchsia Village, even taking her to the top of a windmill to watch the sunset, that inspired her dream of performing a concert for the entire world. They had a fun rivalry and a special bond, but when the red-haired pirates left Fuchsia Village and later returned, Shanks told Luffy that Uta wasn't coming back, and he was so upset that he held a grudge against Shanks for a while. Now, I know what you're thinking, but Uta isn't even canon. Well, guess what? Oda himself confirmed that her childhood with Luffy is canon. So while the events of the movie Film Red aren't part of the main story, their history together is real. So could Uta actually be Luffy's future wife? Well, with all that history, it's absolutely not impossible. Jumping all the way up to an 80% chance of marrying Luffy, we've got Nefertari Vivi. Vivi will always be grateful to Luffy for saving Alabasta, but more than that, she grew so close to him and the Straw Hats that she almost gave up being a princess to sail with them. She loved his carefree attitude, but worried about his recklessness. She also had complete trust in him and his strength, even though he literally punched her in the face. Luffy also cared a lot about Vivi, like he was determined to defeat Crocodile for her, and literally raged when Crocodile mocked her. And by the end of Alabasta, he begged her to join the crew, but she stayed behind out of her duty as a princess. And that goodbye hit Luffy hard, but the crew made sure she knew she was still one of them, flashing their X marks before leaving Vivi in tears of happiness. Even after years apart, Luffy still cares deeply about her. Like when he found out about Cobra's murder and Vivi's disappearance, he was ready to storm Mariajoie and declare war on the world government, Marines, and the world nobles just to make sure she was safe. The only reason he didn't was because Zoro reminded him that Vivi is strong enough to handle herself. So that said, with that level of loyalty, trust, and unbreakable bond, Vivi's got one of the highest chances of marrying Luffy with 80%. Now, we've got Nami with a 95% chance of marrying Luffy. These two have literally been through everything together. From Luffy placing his hat on her head before fighting Arlong to free her from his tyranny, to carrying her up a mountain in a blizzard to find a doctor. And Nami? Well, she yells at him, slaps him, and even locks him in a cage. Wait, those were the wrong moments. I wanted to talk about when Luffy arrived on Zou, and Nami immediately ran up and hugged him, crying that Sanji left the crew, which clearly showed that Luffy is the one person she can always turn to and rely on. They have complete trust in each other. Nami never doubts his strength, and Luffy never doubts her navigation skills. But well, the real reason Nami's got a 95% chance of marrying Luffy is quite simple, really. Their dreams align perfectly. Yeah, Nami wants to map the entire world, and Luffy, well, even when he becomes the king of the pirates, he will want to keep sailing the seas for the rest of his life, continuing to feel free. So Nami will stay by his side until the end. Someone with even more than 95% chance of marrying Luffy, at 99%, well, it's of course Boa Hancock. This isn't a shocker, right? Because we all know that Hancock loves Luffy and wants nothing more than to be his wife. But they started off as enemies, with Hancock wanting him dead after he accidentally saw her naked and saw her slave mark. But when he protected her sister's mark during their fight, everything changed. Because she was shocked by Luffy's selflessness and his pure heart, and she fell madly in love with him. Since then, she's risked everything for him, like helping him sneak into Impel Down and protecting him at Marineford, jeopardizing her position as a warlord. But she did all this because she wanted to, as she's completely obsessed with him, blushing when hearing his name and literally daydreaming of marrying him. And Luffy? Well, he likes Hancock a lot. He deeply appreciates everything she's done for him, like giving him the key to Ace's chains at Marineford to free him. But the best thing she did for him? Yeah, that was giving him a mountain of meat. Like, anyone who gives Luffy this amount of meat has a very high chance of marrying him. Now, we've actually got someone, or well, something left, who's actually got 100% chance of marrying Luffy. Well, Luffy may never marry anyone, but if he could marry meat, he absolutely would. So meat is of course at 100%. Luffy is obsessed with meat, literally daydreaming about it, as he loves meat more than anything in the world. But meat is actually not just a craving for Luffy. He literally needs meat to fight. Like when he ran out of energy after using his Gear 5 at Egghead against Kizaru and the Five Elders, guess what instantly brought him back? Meat. One bite and boom. He was back in action like nothing happened. So yeah, if there's one true love for Luffy, it's meat. Who do you think Luffy will end up marrying? Let me know in the comments below. Thanks for watching, and watch this video next.